evening, ladies and gentlemen. John here from Wood Spinning. Oh, happy holidays, my friend. It's been a hell of a year for music, and welcome to my little variation of my list week. Throughout this week, I'm going to be listing off my top 5 EPs of the year, as well as my favorite singles, and finishing off with my top 20 albums of the year. This is just one of my favorite things that I do all year. I've spent the last couple of weeks compiling my list, doing my re-listens, and I'm feeling pretty good about everything, and I hope that you all enjoyed as much as me. But we have some business to attend to before we get to the good stuff. You know, you always have to eat your dinner before your dessert. You gotta wade through the crap to get through the fun in life. So that's why today I'm here tonight to chat about my top 10 least favorite albums of the year. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest, this was actually harder than usual just because a lot of great stuff truly came out this year. But without further ado, I'm going to give you my top 10 least favorite albums of the year. As always, remember that this is just opinion, friends. You may love these albums, I just couldn't do it. So without further ado, let's dive in. At number 10, we have the latest Shoo Shoo album, Ignore Grief. This was a weird one even for Shoo Shoo, and I should preface this by saying it's been years. It's been years since I have truly loved a Shoo Shoo record, and leading up to this thing, I thought this very well may be the album to do it, because if there is one good thing about this record, it is just how unbearably dark and tense it truly is. As far as that goes, this is the darkest thing that Shoo Shoo has done in years, and if you know their discography inside and out, you'll know that's a pretty big statement. Yeah, this thing is dark, but it's really muddled as well. Jamie's vocals specifically across this entire project do not seem up to the task. And while I, do appreciate them kind of looking into the direction of dark ambient and post-industrial and things like that, I think there's just so many better ways to do it. This thing was kind of bad. At number 9, we're going with the new Atmosphere album. So many other realities exist simultaneously. Oh, once again, this is an artist. Atmosphere is an artist that I have watched so closely over the years and have influenced my style of enjoying music so much. And this new 20-track double disc album, I thought might be the one to do it. Just because, when this album's good, there's some great songs on there. But I think the big issue here is just how quickly these good ideas fizzle out. This thing is well over an hour long. It's just so many missed opportunities. Yeah, there's really grimy, introspective highs, but the lows take up so much of this album, and it's just, I didn't need so much material. It's certainly a big disappointment for me. At number 8, I'm giving it to the new Blink-182 album, One More Time. Now, I will preface this by saying, I did enjoy some tracks on this album, probably more than I could have ever imagined in my wildest dreams, because I thought this was going to be like a 2 out of 10 project. Not only that, compared to California and 9, this thing's got a couple of really decent tracks. When Mark, Tom, and Travis put their heads on straight, yeah, they get it. But then we get to later tracks here, and things just get really cringy and kind of creepy and just really dated sounding, not to mention the biggest one of all, just shallow outside of just a little bit of nostalgia. Yeah, I just can't see myself coming back to it anytime soon. Also, at number 7, I was so unbelievably let down by this new Disclosure album, Alchemy. This is a clunky mess. This was a surprise drop out of nowhere, and I was actually pretty hyped to it because I love Disclosure. When they are on, they are on. But this thing is so clunky and awkward, and you get moments of a fresh beat or some interesting production. You do. But these two seem lost. The songwriting seems to be really struggling here to keep up with these dime a dozen beats. I don't know what happened here, but these modern day house heroes just instantly seem like amateurs. Really let down. Really a big letdown. But even more so a letdown is this new Temples album, Exotico. My morbid curiosity got the best of me once again. I mean, I've never enjoyed a Temples album. And this thing is an hour long. And I will say this, if you listen to it and make it through it, in the later moments, you will find maybe 3 or 4 of the best tracks that Temples have ever dropped. But to get to that, you have to wade through an immense, and I truly mean immense amount of garbage. Sunny atmospheres with absolutely nothing to fall back on. Dime a dozen instrumentals and an absurd, and I do mean absurd, amount of ripping off their contemporaries. That's what you're gonna find here. Lots of it too. It's not good. It's so much so that next time they roll out an album, I don't think that I will be listening to it. Speaking of my morbid curiosity, at number 5, it's Bass Drum of Death with Say I Won't. Now, back in high school, Bass Drum of Death were kind of unsung heroes for me. I really loved their very sweaty, upbeat, very simple, but yet very effective approach to garage punk. But this new album here, half of it is spent, once again, ripping off their contemporaries. The other half of it is spent with them just clinging, and I do mean clinging to their slight glory days that they had like 15 years ago, and just coming off cringy and, most importantly, really creepy at times. Yeah, I'm totally out on this one. It's a rough listen. At number 4, it's the new Kimbra record, A Reckoning. What happened here? I mean, her last album, I thought, was by far her best album. I mean, I was so pumped for this record, but sadly, this thing is an absolute mess. Most of this album is just art pop that really, really, really thinks it's edgy and sexy. It's neither. And don't get me started on the guest features on this thing, because, man, I feel embarrassed for some of them. I mean, Kimbra is very personal, very telling lyrics. I do commend. But overall, this thing is just so tough to sit through. Okay. Deep breaths. We're going to get through this together. At number 3, on my worst albums of the year, it would be this new Shabazz Palace's album, Robed in Rareness. I have no idea what's happened to Shabazz Palace's, because in their early days, the days of Black Up, I thought that Ishmael Butler was ready to push abstract hip-hop into this next phase. But now the wheels are spinning, and they are spinning hard. What is this album? The beats here, if you want to call them beats, are practically non-existent, and even with that, even with these very broad atmospheres, Ishmael Butler sounds lost. Completely lost. I mean, the cosmic aesthetic on, like, at times is kind of cool, but this is by far the worst hip-hop project I've heard this year. Real shame. And at number 2, despite all the criticism that I got for hating this, I am sticking to my word, cause it's a mess. At number 2, it would be the third act of the Smashing Pumpkins Autumn Trilogy. Yuck. That's where I'd like to start. Second of all, why is this disc the longest of all 3? It has zero right to be. And you know what? If you saw my review of the second disc of Autumn, I was really surprised by how decent the material was. Call me ridiculous, but I was actually almost looking forward to this third disc. But this thing is abysmal. So many of these tracks go well over 5 minutes. But there's no passion in sight. Yes, there's a couple of tracks here that are okay. Not great, but certainly okay. But I feel like this is the worst disc of the project, and it should be avoided at all costs. The whole Autumn Trilogy basically should. Which leads me to my number 1 spot. The worst thing that I've listened to this year. And this may come as a shock to everyone, just because I enjoyed their last album so much. And it was one of the biggest surprises a few years ago. But the absolute worst thing I listened to this year, as a matter of fact, one of the worst things I've ever listened to for this blog, would be the new Django Django album, Off Planet. Following up their best album, Glowing in the Dark, with one of the worst things I've heard in indie pop in ages, this is their Sharp Left Turn album, except they go way too far down the rabbit hole. As advertised, this is a 4-disc, hour and a 20-minute album that is supposed to be like some look into the band's future, and if that's true, I'm scared for the future. This is genuinely one of the most clumsy and just poorly performed art pop and indie-tronic albums of the last decade. The beats are pathetic, the songwriting's phoned in, and once again, I don't know what was going on this year, but like 75% of these vocal guests I feel embarrassed for, and they sound lost. It's truly the worst thing that I've heard this year. It took me days just to write my review just because it was that bad. It should be avoided at all costs. Oh, I never want to think about it ever again. But this was the 10 albums that I thought were the worst that I reviewed this year. But let me know down below what some of your least favorite albums of the year were. And going forward, let's look into some things that I actually enjoyed. Tune in tomorrow for my top 5 EPs of the year. And until next time, have a great day, friends.